Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to take a look at how to make your mid basses a little bit more punchy and just how I've sequenced my events from the plugin itself to generate the sound and then through to the plugin chain that I use to obviously emphasize certain frequencies and just make things sound like they're rolling and fitting together a little bit better. So we're focusing on this track that's playing in the background and more specifically this low mid bass here. So this is the track. I'll just let you listen to this without me talking for a couple of seconds and then I'll solo it and just let you listen to that and then we'll look through what's going on. Okay, so that is what's happening, that's the sound that we're going to focus on. And let's have a look at the plugin first. So this is where I have generated the sound, which is Union. This is available, Trance 01 is available on my website. This one's free with another one from that video. If you haven't checked that video, I'll leave a link and put something on screen for you there. Okay, so this is the sound. We're using two saw waves here. Unison 9 and 6, so just general stuff, and then some distortion to influence the shape of the wavetable. And then we've just got some effects. So we've got some delay on there to give it a bit of movement, dynamics to just keep it under control, and some EQ to tidy it up at the end. And I think that is everything on that one. It is. And then obviously there's some shaping with the mod ADSRs and stuff like that just to get the sound. So that is, in a nutshell, how I've got that sound, and it is based on the delay here, which is giving it its movement. Okay, so that is the sound. Nothing like out of the ordinary. This is just simple sound design, and that's what you want. Simple works better. Okay, so we're in the mixer now, and we have the low mid section here soloed, and these are the things that are happening on there. I'll just put that back on there. We're not using Molot on that one, so I'll just put no effect. Right, so the first thing that I do is I saturate the sound, especially on my basses. It kind of puts it in the ballpark of where I want to hear it. If the sound doesn't come out nice when, or what I expect it to sound like when I've put the saturation on, that tells me I need to tweak the sound or just change it up, just get something different in there till something sounds right. And for this track, saturation, this bass just worked perfectly because obviously I sound designed it to be in that sort of ballpark. So let's turn these off and listen to the sound raw. That is the preset unprocessed. Then with saturation, okay, so it's easy to go, yes, that sounds better, but let's understand why it sounds better, and it's not because we've got an 8 dB boost on this. Volume perceives better a lot of the times, and you've got to make sure that you balance out your sound that is coming out. But the sound level was quite low, so I use this to boost it, and then I start controlling the chain level from that point. And that is your gain stage. And if you haven't seen my gain staging video, that is on screen now as well, so you can go and watch that and come back if you're not too sure what I'm on about there. So you can see here, saturation isn't distortion, it's in the distortion family, but it's more to add some extra harmonics in there that and boost the current harmonics to give it a kind of a fuller sound, a warmer sound, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So this is for extra warmth, but also give some more bite to the sound. And that's what I was looking for, that bite. If it didn't have it when I started adjusting the tone control, then it was back to the drawing board for sound design. So let's have a listen again. So you can hear that it's adding a bit more of a gritty texture, there's more bite in there. It's not just louder. And we've rolled this off at 40 Hz. I didn't want anything below there being affected by the saturator. And we did have some drive on there just to see what it sounded like, but it was a little bit too powerful, so I'll show you that. It was just way too much, even at a lower level there. So that was bypassed. And by the way, this is free. It comes with the 1950s preset. So you can go and get them, like Saturator. They do a few other plugins as well. Okay, so that's the first point. And then the second point, I always go to some multiband compression. So in this case, we've used Axis. And this is really the part where I bring out the details, the bits where I want the sound to be heard in the mix. So this is the bit that decides the rest of the bass layers, if you would have it. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like without. And then with. Okay, so you can hear there is a lot more bite, a lot more drive in that mid-range, especially on this band. This is the band that we focus on. And the first thing that people do when they get into a multiband compressor, if you're not too sure what you're doing with it, they go, oh, I need to edit everything. I need to edit every band. And I've been there in the past. You just go in and think, oh, well, I need to make sure everything's doing something. And that's not the case. In this case, there is something happening, but not to the extremities you would expect. So, working from the lower frequencies, so up to about 120 hertz here, 130-ish, we have on the imaging tab, you can see that we've removed all of the stereo detail, so we're just in mono, and that helps focus that lower end. With this being a lower mid, I want some of those low details in there, but I don't want it to be too low, and we'll sort that out at the later stage of the inserts, as you can see here. Then on the compressor, we do just some basic compression on there to control the levels. So if you isolate this band, and I'll just bypass the compressor as it's playing, and you'll hear how it's controlling those low frequencies, because we don't want them to be dominant. This is a low mid-range bass. So the first version with it bypassed actually sounds more pleasing to the ears, but we want to have that under control and more mono. We don't want stereo detail in that lower end if we want it to be nice and punchy and focused. Okay, so moving on to the next band, this is just another control effort, so you can see there's a little bit of stereo detail added just to increase it. And then on the compression, we're actually using the upwards expansion feature that Axis offers, and this just brings out some of the details. With it being a low mid, these are the two main focused areas. So on this one, if we listen to this isolated, and then we'll bypass so you can hear exactly what this expansion is adding to the sound. So as you can hear, there is a lot more detail coming out in terms of the delay. You can hear that rolling effect happening a little bit better. It doesn't sound as flat, and it's just got a little bit more energy in there, and that's what we're looking for. That is like kind of the real nice sweet spot there. But that is not the only frequency we're looking for. We want to emphasize these classic trance things like the rolling effect and all that like detail from the delay happening in the background and all those little frequency details that have come in there from the saturator being added. We want to make sure everything can be heard, so then when we knock it back using some sidechain and other features, we can then bring it back later on and focus it back in, because inevitably adding other things on is going to undo some of the processing happening here. And that's where you make a creative decision. You could have the sidechain before Axis, you could have the EQ before Axis or after. It depends what the final outcome is, and I'm accepting that there's going to be a bit of detail lost, and then we're going to add it back in and make sure that everything is sweet. Okay, so on this third band here, this is where the magic happens. So as you can see on the imaging, we've boosted the mid and side spread. So the mid gain and the side spread with a bit of side gain on there as well. And this is all just kind of tailored in over adding the other bass elements and mixing it in context. Don't just mix the bass on its own. Make sure you have some other elements that are working quite nice together and start building your bass into it, or the other way around, build your bass and add the other elements into it. As long as you're mixing in context, you're always going to achieve the sound that you're looking for. Then on the compressor, we are using the upwards expansion feature again, and you can see there's quite a lot happening there. Not too much, but quite a lot to make this sound even more unique than it is. So this is before. And then added. Okay, so I'm just going to let you know this is obviously expanding upwards, but when it's actually happening, this is compressing, and that is bringing out that lower detail, which is the delay to give that rolling trance bass. So that's just a quick correction there. The compression is not upwards expansion, it's actually compression. So this is compressing, and what that's doing is letting you hear those lower details that are being brought more into focus, which is the delays to create that rolling effect. Okay, and finally, if we isolate this top bar band, we have from 5K onwards to the top, we've increased the stereo spread, but we've reduced the side spread, and then we've reduced the side gain and the mid gain. And that is just tailored to hearing the sound in context with the rest of the track. So it's not just a little trick that I do that makes it sound better. This is just mixed in context. And then on here, you can see we've got some upwards compression. And this is actually upwards compression this time. And all it's doing is just giving that little bit of kind of upper mid-range. It's not doing the top range that much. You can see it rolls off quite heavily there. So that's what it sounded like before, and it's very side detailed, but I wanted it to be a bit more punchy. So we've focused it more into the middle to give it a little bit more clout. And then all together we have this. So you can see we've added no more delay into it. We're just using the built-in delay from Union and using the compression and everything else on the multiband to bring out those details back out even further than they were. Next we have some sidechain, and this is just sidechaining using the evade, and you can see that these is letting some of the top frequencies through, so it's not actually compressing anything above sidechaining anything above 4.5 kilohertz. Now, if you think back, what did I say with the axis? We're losing detail. We're going to expect to lose some, and here it is. This is where the detail's lost. Loads and loads of delay. Suddenly it's all gone with the sidechain. And you'd think, well, I don't want that. I'm going to then put in a delay effect after that and put it all back in. And yes, you could do that. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. But we're going to do it by using some EQ techniques and then some final compression. So you can see I've just turned on fat filter there. That is just literally a high pass filter. So I'm just putting that on so it doesn't actually add any value to the sound. Then we have our EQ, and this is where some of the magic's happening. So we have a roll off here at 27 Hertz. That's just to get rid of any unwanted bass frequencies. We've got the kick carved out a little bit here. It's a little bit offset at the moment, but it's going to move back to here. I just need to get the bass sounding right, and this is kind of where this video started. So this will kind of hit the bass more, and you'll see this red line where the kick drum is coming through, and this is a bit offset at the moment. Here we have a side channel, which again is rolling off all the stereo details. So the high pass on the side mix, anything in this area has become essentially mono. Nice little trick that you can use on your EQ to make sure everything's nice, tight and punchy and in the place it should be. And you can see I've done that up to about 68 Hertz, and that's just where it sounded like the sweet spot for this low mid bass. So let's have a listen to those, and I'll just solo them so you can hear exactly what's happening. So plenty of unwanted frequencies are removed. there you can hear a lot of resonant stuff, so you'll need headphones for this. You won't be able to hear this on speakers if you're listening just on a smaller device. But as you can see, it's offset from where the kick is. That red line going up the middle of this frequency area is where the kick drum lies. And that just removes some of that frequency range so the kick has more room to breathe. Again, on screen now, how to mix kick and bass is there. Then we have this section here where there's a little bit reduced, and this is the box area. This is the area that I detest the most, and I think a lot of producers do, but you can use it to your advantage depending on the sound you're designing. But in this case, I just wanted to bring it under control a little bit more. So you can see I've not done too much reduction there, but it's nearly a decibel in reduction, so it's just changing the sound. Don't want to remove it completely by going drastic on the cut, because then you start changing the sound properties, and then things start sounding different, and everything you've done before starts to get undone. And you don't want to do that. Then here on the 800 Hertz area, we have a mid-channel boost. And what this is doing is emphasizing the mono content in this section over the side content, and it just gives it a little bit of a boost and adds that character into your track. And let's have a listen. So no side detail whatsoever, mixed in, sounds quite effective. So I'll bypass this so you can hear this effect. So you can hear that it's just adding that little bit of presence, the characteristic sound of a mid bass, and that is kind of the mid area. So that is where it sounded nicest in this mix as well. So it's roughly that area where you can do a bit of a mono boost just to give it a little bit more presence. And then finally, this adds bite. So this adds the transient detail and just emphasizes it that little bit more to the point where it cuts through the rest of the mix and you can hear that element contributing to the track. So again, I'll put this on and off so you can hear exactly what is happening. Okay, and just to isolate that frequency as well. That is the area that I call the rubber band area, and that just, it sounds like a rubber band being twanged. That just adds a little bit more transient detail into the bass. And finally, we have a high pass just rolling off at 24,000 hertz. It kind of rolls off to about 5,000 hertz around here, and that just controls that top end that we don't really want present. So, as you could hear when this was turned on, you'll hear the refinement from the kind of detail that Evade takes away, and it just refines the sound that little bit more. So let's bypass the whole thing. So remember, we don't want this to have a ton of power on the bottom. It sounds better without the EQ on, but when you don't want that bass element there and you want to focus more on this area, that is some of the things you've got to do. You're going to sacrifice some of those sounds because you know the sub bass is going to take over this whole area anyway. So it doesn't matter. You don't want too much bass happening in one area. And then finally we have our compression. And on here, we have got a very, very steep threshold. And the reason for this, we've just got it set to classic, so it's just a classic compressor. But we've got a ratio set 4:1. And then we've got a very sharp attack and a very sharp release on hard knee, or nearly full hard knee. And then the threshold's dialed back to really emphasize those transient and give it that really powerful low mid, well, that mid bass kind of power. So let's have a listen without, and then we'll turn it on. Okay, so you can hear that what is happening there, the bass has been brought back to life. So Evade kind of sucked the life out of it, and that's always going to do that, because we're sidechaining frequency detail out of there. But Axis brought out all kind of the delay and the rhythm and rolling aspect. Evade kind of took it away. And then we added this EQ, which focused everything that we wanted to hear, which was boosting that lower volume again and adding some of that delay back in. And then the compression at the end with the really hard threshold has brought that detail back out. So it's not lost, it's just quieter again, and we've just brought it back to the forefront, and we haven't added any extra delay. This is all the delay from Union built into the synth. Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's a lot of delay there, and you think, oh, I need more on that still, but that's where the other elements come in. So we have the mid-arp bass, tons of delay on there. We have the Spire bass here, tons of delay on there. We have this bass support element, tons of reverb and delay on there as well. So why does this low mid bass need tons of delay as well? We just want enough to give it that drive forward. We don't want it to be boring like this, but we want it to have some power and a little bit of delay there to give it some extra characteristic. Okay, so all in all, let's listen to it all in one go, and I'll mute all the inserts on the second pass so you can hear the difference. And there you have it. That is creating a more powerful bass. I just noticed this electric zip sound actually was in the different key. So this is in A. And for some reason I've pitched that down by accident. So that should go like that. And I've got a feeling they're all on this. So I pitched them all down by accident or copied and pasted them after. So that is looking at mid basses and just bringing detail out, and you can see right from the get-go the low mid bass just has been built in Union, and then we've used the delay built in to give it that rolling pattern, and then all the inserts that have come after that have emphasized that, taken it away, softened it, and then we've brought it back. So it's just about understanding the signal flow and understanding that, yeah, you've softened it or made it more subtle, but you can bring it back out later, but you've achieved the sound that you wanted. So that is the low mid bass tutorial. That's probably a more up-to-date one than the previous one that I did. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below. Smash a comment down below as well. I get back to everybody, or at least I try my very best. It's getting very busy on this channel at the moment. And finally, hit subscribe, 3 videos per week. And don't forget, follow me on Patreon for exclusive content that doesn't get posted here, plus free presets. And if you pick the top tier, I look at your tracks 15 minutes per month, just having a look at your track and give you some feedback. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.